It's the Ides of February, so in honor of the Cupidinous month, it's fair to ask, how much do you love me? Welcome, friends, one and all, to Hodie Romae, that is, Today in Rome, a podcast from Vertigus and a moose-bouche of tasty tidbits and trifles from antiquity and the medieval world. I'm your host, Avery. Rounding out February, our Ides episode concerns the Emperor Theodosius I, who was born January 11th, 347, and died January 17th, 395. The two dates thus cradling not the Ides of February, but of January, which also falls on the 13th. But this is a tale of love, so I figured February was appropriate, although it's not a tale of romantic, but filial love. Theodosius was the last emperor to rule the entire empire, both east and west. Our tale for today, however, comes from the Gesta Romanorum, a late medieval 13th or 14th century collection of wondrous stories. Is this particular story true? Although Theodosius fought and put down 2 civil wars, hardly. But many of you will recognize this story as the seed for a well-known tragedy. Theodosius, very wise and powerful, had 3 beautiful daughters. As parents do, he asked the oldest, "How much do you love me?" And she said, "Certainly more than I love myself." Good answer. Survey says, "Ka-ching!" Theodosius said, "I shall promote you to great riches." And he married her right away to a wealthy and powerful king. Continuing his quest for an ego boost, the emperor asked his second daughter, "How much do you love me?" And she said, "Just as much as I love myself." Good enough, maybe just a hint of side-eye. For this answer, the emperor married her to a duke. At last he came to the third and youngest daughter, and you guessed it, he asked her that timeless and oh so appropriate question, "How much do you love me?" And she said, "As much as befits you, no more, no less." Bruh, ego deflate. So he said, "I'm not going to marry you off as well as your sisters." And he gave her in marriage to a courtier. Shortly after these events, the emperor began to wage war against the king of Egypt. The Egyptian king, however, put the emperor to flight, so he had no refuge from any quarter. Cue the Led Zeppelin. Theodosius wrote a letter to his first daughter, who'd said that she loved him even more than herself, to ask for aid and housing. After she read the letter, she told her husband, the king, about the emergency, and he said, "We should help him in his great need. I shall gather my army and help him with all my power." But she said, "That's a little pricey. It is good enough if we give him 5 soldiers to hang out with him." And so it was done. The daughter wrote back to her father, "You get 5 soldiers, that's it." When the emperor heard this, he was very sad and said, "Woe is me! All my hope was in my eldest daughter, because she said she loved me more than herself. And because of this, I promoted her to a great rank." You know what he did next. At once, he wrote to daughter number 2. She told her husband and advised him to grant nothing to her father except food and clothing, at least food and clothing befitting a king, as long as he lived. To this effect, she wrote her father back. When the emperor heard this, he was very sad, saying, "I have been deceived through 2 daughters. Now I shall try the third, who said to me, 'I love you as much as befits you.'" He wrote to her about his great need and how her sisters had answered him. The third daughter, after she saw her father's helplessness, said to her husband, "My revered lord, support me in this need. My father has just been driven from his inheritance." And her husband said to her, "What do you want me to do?" She said, "Gather an army, and with him finish the war on his enemy." He replied with words that would make Wesley proud. "As you wish." At once he gathered a great army, and at his own expense accompanied the emperor, and went to war. He obtained victory and put the emperor back in charge of his domain. Then the emperor said, "Blessed was the hour in which I had my youngest daughter. I loved her less than my other daughters, and she supported me in my great need anyway. My other daughters failed me, and so upon my death I shall leave my entire empire to my youngest daughter. And so it was done. After her father's death, the daughter ruled and finished her life in peace. And so, my friends, by now I'm sure you hear the leering skeleton of Bill's story rattling around your head. As always, be kind to each other and full of good cheer. May you neither be fooled by flattery, nor be so obtuse you don't see how sharp blunt words can be. Until next time, farewell.
Salvete amici omnes ad odie Romae, id est today in Rome. Divulgatum ex vertigo, acroama gustus conditorum nugarum ex antiquitate aut medio aevo. Hospes sum Wester Avery. In honorum mensis cupiditatis, quod haec res idibus febro aureus agitur, rogemus, quantum me diligis. Diligere dixi, nec amare, quia argumentum fabulae nostrae est de pietate erga patrum. Quis est hic pater? Imperator Theodosius ille primus. Fabula autem ex gesta Romanorum venit, nec veritatem abens, sed portasse sapientiam. Aut sceoan semina alterius fabulae noscatis. Theodosius in civitate Romanae regnavit prudens valde et potens. Qui tres filias pulchras habebat, dixitque filiae signori, quantum diligis me, ad ille, certe plus quam me ipsam, aete pater, et te ad magnas divitias promoebo, statim ipsam dedit uni regi opulento, et potenti in uxorem. Post haec venit ad secundum filium, et aete, quantum diligis me, ad illa, tantum sicut me ipsam. Imperator vero, iam qui duci tradidit in uxorem. Et post haec venit ad tertiam filiam, et aete, quantum me diligis, ad illa, tantum sicut vales, et non plus neque minus. Aete pater, ex quo ite est, non ite opulenter ero maritare, sicut et sorores tuae. Tradidit eam quidam comiti in uxorem. Accidit cito post haec, quod imperator bellum contra regum Aegyptae habebat. Rex vero imperatorum de imperio fugabat, unde bonum refugi habere non poterat. Scripsit litteras annulo suo signates, ad primam filiam suam, quae dixit, quod paterum suum plusquam se ipsam dilexit, ut succurreret in sua necessitate, ea quod de imperio expulsus erat. Filia, cum has litteras eus legisset, viro suo regi cassum primo narrabat. Ait rex, bonumst, ut succurramus ei in ac sua magna necessitate. Colligam exercitum meam, et cum tote posse meo adiuavo eum. Ait illa, istud non potest fieri sine magnis expensis. Sufficit, quod concedatis, quam Dio est extra imperium suum, quinque milites, quae associentur. Et sic factumst. Filia patri rescripsit, quod aliud auxilium ab ea abere non posset, nisi quinque milites, de sumptibus regis in societate sua. Imperator, cum hoc audisset, contristus erat valde, et infra se dicebat, Eumi, tota spes mea erat in signore filia mea, ea quod dixit, plus me dilexit quam se ipsam, et propter hoc ad magnum dignitatem ipsam promoi. Scripsit statum secundae filiae quae dixit, tantum te diligo quantum me ipsam, quod succurreret ei in tanta necessitate. At illa, cum audicit, viro suo denuntiabat, et ipsi conciliavit, ut nihil aliud ei concederet nisi victum et vestitum, quam Dio viveret, honeste pro tali rege. Et super hoc litteras patris suo rescripsit. Imperator, cum hoc audicet, contristatus est valle, digens, deceptut sum per tuas filias, tam temptabo tertiam, quae mihi dixit, tantum te diligo quantum vales. Littera scripsit ei, ut ei succurrerit in tanta necessitate, et quomoro sorores suae ei respondebant. Tertia filia cum vidissent in opiam patris sui, ad virum suum dixit, Domine me reverende, mihi succurrere in hac necessitate, iam pater meus expulsus est ab hereditate sua. Aite vir eos, quid vis tu, ude faciam. At illa, exercitum colligas, et ad debellandum inimicum suum pergas comeo. Ait comes, voluntatem tuum ad implebo. Statim colligit magnum exercitum et sumptibus suis propriis cum imperatore perexit ad bellum. Victoriam abtinuit et imperatorem in imperio suo posuit. Tunc ait imperator. Benedicta ora in qua genui filiam meam juniorem. Ipsa minus aliis filiabus dilexi, et mihi in magna necessitate succurrit. Et alia filia mea defecerunt. Propter quod totum imperium reliquero post decessum meum filiae meae juniori. Et sic factum est. Post decessum patris, filia junior regnavit et in pace vitam finiuit. Et nunc fabulae semina Gulielmi audivisti. Amici, nec accentione decet inflari, nec verbum in urbanum fari. Valete.